Let's start with another very interesting part called network programs. All right. So here we are going to talk about HTTP and everything. It's a very important session, even though it's not directly related to machine learning. But when we download data and when we try to extract data from various websites, it's going to be quite useful. Okay. So that's the reason why we have kept the network program in the discussion. All right. So there is a client, there is a server, and client connects to the server either via the network or via the internet, right? No big deal. I think we understand it. When we say client, client basically means any kind of device. It could be a mobile, it could be a laptop, it could be an iPad, it could be a PC, or it could be another server. Okay. Client generally on the internet, client generally renders the HTML, JavaScript, and makes the AJAX calls and CSS. We'll go into each of the keywords like AJAX later. Now, the client talks to the server is by the way of HTTP. The client sends a request and the server responds to it. The client can send all kinds of requests, or client could create something called a socket connection. Okay. On the server side, we could use Python. We would be having a data store. We would be having templates in which you'll be filling data. And and if you are using, say, Python on the server side, we might be using a framework like Django, and Django has templates. And also there could be a caching system called Memcache. That's about it. Okay, so we will go into more details. A question from Noor is good tool to test regex. You could use actually the Google Slides to use to search for regex, and I think that will help you. Or you could just use the Jupyter with re.findall. Okay. A question from Kamal: how do you make headings in Jupyter? The one you have stated, request in Python. Okay, how do you make that happen? All right, so the way you make it happen like this, right? So what you do is you put hash here in markdown, and then you say cell type is markdown, and then press shift enter. That's how you make these headings in Jupyter. Now, let's talk about the network architecture. Most of the internet works on TCP, Transport Control Protocol, built on top of IP, Internet Protocol. It assumes IP might lose some data, so it retransmits the data if it seems to be lost. It handles flow control using transmit window, and it provides a nice reliable pipe. So TCP is basically the underlying protocol. What's a protocol? Protocol is something that two people agree on and they follow. So TCP is that. This was the oldest form of telephone or the communication or the protocol. So the TCP connections or sockets are important terminology. Please pay attention to this. In computer networking, an internet socket or network socket is an endpoint of a bidirectional communication. Okay, and this communication flows through an internet-based computer network such as internet. Okay, not a big deal. The way you look at it is that the way we plug in something like a wire to a wall in the socket, in the same way, the client hooks on to the server. Server opens up, listens on a particular socket, and the client hooks onto it, right? When we open a website, which we are basically connected to a socket on the server. When we open a website in the browser, we are connected to the server socket. Okay, so server can listen on multiple sockets, and basically the socket is nothing but an endpoint. Okay, now TCP provides these numbers for the socket. We call them port numbers. A port is application specific or process specific software communication endpoint. It allows multiple network applications to coexist on the same server. Okay, so every service that you have seen, right? Email server, HTTP server, or SSH, or right now with the way we are using the Jupyter is basically over the HTTP. Then there are hundreds of kinds of services running on the same machine. Right? On a single server, there would be a mail server running. There will be a, what is a server? Server is a software program that continuously runs, waits for the customer to come and responds to them. That is a server. Okay? So in very simple words, the server listens on a socket and we identify the socket by a port number. Okay? So every service listens on a port. Say, for example, a web server, which is listening on what? HTTP port, right? HTTP port is what? 80 by default. And HTTPS is 443, all right? And by default, most of the SMTP server, the email server, they listen on 25 port. Okay, so these are the and say there is a server called file server in which you upload files by the way of something called FTP. So that is an FTP server listening for customers request for file, and it's listening on 21 port. So every application is given is a kind of, people have agreed on the port numbers. Okay, all right, so Noor is not able to share the links. I agree. This we did not know about Google Hangout, so we will try to avoid this in future. What you can do is the Google Doc that I gave you, you can put it there, okay, in that Google Doc, and then I'll share that with others. Okay, this was the Google Doc that I had put in. All right, so here is the example that I was giving you. So there is so this one machine, say umic.edu has email server login. So email server, people can log in using SSH, and there is a web server, there is a mailbox listening. So when people connect to the mailbox, they connect to either 110 or 101. This is POP3. When they connect to the web server, they connect to either HTTP or HTTPS. If they log in using SSH or Telnet, they use 23. They when they when they connect to the email server, it's running on 25 port. So this is a hardware computer. So server is nothing but a computer program. This is a computer program. They're continuously running in the background, listening on a particular socket, so that when client comes, they can respond. They can respond. Okay. Good. So these are the common TCP ports. These are very, very important parts. So this is something very, very common. Okay. So while we call server means a hardware, server is basically the server or service is generally referred to as software program. All right. Now, here is sometimes we see port numbers in the URL if web service is running on non-standard ports. Like if it's not running on 80 ports, sometimes you might see these port numbers. Okay. Now, Python has a built-in support for sockets. Okay. So server is a software program that listens on a particular port. Serve means when when you want something from a server and server responds, that means the server is serving you. Okay, is that your question, Binta? Now, Python has a built-in support to connect as well as to create a service. Okay, so here what we're trying to do is we are importing a library called socket, and we are saying socket.socket, and we are providing the protocol and the stream name. Okay, these are the keywords to tell that we are trying to use the TCP connection. Then we are saying my socket.connect, and here we are providing to who do we want to connect. So here we are saying that this is the host name and this is the port number. Okay, all right. So that's how we connect to the various servers. Now, since TCP and Python gives us such a reliable socket, what do we want to do with the socket? What problem are we trying to solve? So the various application protocols such as www and mail, they all use the same TCP connection or HTTP. Okay, HTTP is hypertext transfer protocol. It's basically the one which serves the website. Okay, here it was the HTTP protocol was initially invented so that when the user requests, the server would give HTML and images and documents and etc. Extended to be data in addition to the standard HTML. So we got more and more add-ons to HTTP. We got web services. We got the binary data. Got all kinds of more additions to HTTP. HTTP was initially designed such that users could request the HTML and the server would give out the HTML. A question is a server hardware, computer, or software? So server is generally the way we talk about server is um, a software. Okay, server is a software. It's a process that runs forever. There is FTP server, there is a web server, there is a mail server, and so on. Sometimes we also refer to a hardware as a server, saying, and that can be any computer can be a server. All right, any computer could be a server. All right, so HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is a set of rules to allow browsers to retrieve the documents from the server over the internet. So using HTTP, we could retrieve the documents. Basically, it's a kind of a communication protocol. Communication protocol means if the client is supposed to say this, and we are supposed to answer this. That's a kind of agreement. That's a kind of agreement. So a set of rule that all parties follow so that we can predict each other's behavior and do not bump into each other or do not make a mistake. That's a protocol. On two-way roads in US, you always drive on right-hand side of the road, right? In India, you always drive on left-hand side. So that's a protocol. Or in UK, you drive on the left-hand side. So that's the agreement that we all the various parties agree upon, so that we can communicate, we can work together, and we can coexist together. That's a protocol. So on the website, the protocol is this is how the okay. So here what you see is there is a web page. Let's take a look at this part. We have got This part is protocol in the URL. This is the name of the host, or you can say the server IP address, followed by the document that we want to get from the server. Okay. Each time the user clicks on anchor, a GET request is fired from the browser. The server returns the HTML documents to the browser, which formats and displays the document, right? And so when we want to make an HTTP request, we are going to connect to server, something like cloudxlab.com, or here in case Dr. Chuck, and that's a handshake. That's the initial one. And then we say that give me this page or give me that page and so on. So that's the HTTP request. So this is your first page. The request goes from the browser to the cloud, meaning the web server, and the request looks like, give me this particular page. And the server responds, hey, here is the content of your page in the form of HTML. And we get the second page. All right, we get the second page as the, so this HTML, which we got from the web server, is rendered like this. I hope this diagram is clear to everyone. So from your browser, when you click on second page, the request went to the server that give me the second page, and the server responded in the form of HTML that here is your page. And the browser took that HTML, rendered it here. Okay, that's the HTTP protocol. Okay, so with respect to the internet standard, the standards for all of the internet protocols are developed by an organization called IETF. These standards are called RFCs. These are called request for comments. Okay, so you can take a look at, say, the meaning of HTTP protocol in this particular RFC. Okay, from time to time there are improvements in HTTP, and a request RFC is created, and in the RFC you can find the detailed behavior of the protocol. And few people who implement, few of the engineers, what they do is they take the RFC, create the library, and in a similar way in Python, libraries have been created so that you don't have to implement the protocol. You just have to behave like a client to these libraries. So here's an example of HTTP protocol. So in this, it tells you that what's the format of a request. What does it mean by a request? And it also tells you what does it mean by each individual part of the request. Okay, so again, making an HTTP request is like we connect to a server, and after doing handshake, we request for our document. Okay, so here we can actually use the command line tool to talk to a particular server. Okay, let me see if I could do it. Okay, instead of using telnet, I'm going to use another thing called the NC. Okay, now let me see if I could. So in my Jupyter, I go to say terminal. I go to terminal and say NC, and I'm connecting to this. And then what I do is I say, give me this particular document. It says that the document is not found. Okay, but it is able to communicate to the server. Okay, let me try a little bit more tweaking. Probably I could say, give me this particular page. Says document not found. I'll say get slash and say HTTP, give me the top one. It work like this? Yeah, this is how it works. Okay, it says it's not found. Never mind. So probably the website does not exist. Can I try with cloudxlab.com? So this is basically using NC or similar tools. We can directly connect to any server. Allow me to do that. Says that the web server is not allowing us to run the HTTP. Okay, but the whole communication is happening over. Okay, so actually the plain text one is disabled. That's why we are not able to access anything here. Okay, but if the plain text was enabled, I could have demonstrated to you. Okay, so what I was trying to demonstrate that the communication could establish from your command line to the web server using tools like ANSI or tools like Telnet. Okay, now Now, in the movies, you will see these hacking that happens, and the first one was kind of, you must have seen a movie called Matrix Reloaded. There, from the console, they were trying to connect over SSH or NC. They were actually trying to do uh, the real connection to a socket. Okay, and all right. So there are, I mean, there are websites which basically display beautifully in the browser, though under the hood, those are HTML. Okay, so those under the hood, this is how the web page looks like. All right. So the big picture is the the image and HTML and everything is rendered by the browser in a nice way, while the user is requesting the content from the server. Okay. In the browser, you can have a debugger and you can take a look at HTML pages, images, CSS, and JavaScript. And you can just click on debug and you will see all of the images and things like that. I'm hoping that these parts you are aware of, so I'm skipping a bit. Now, let's try to understand what it means by an HTTP request in Python. So the first step that we do is we say import socket. And then we say socket.socket, and we provide the protocol name and the kind of stream that we want. And then we say connect. Then we say send this particular command. We say get me this. And once that happens, then we iterate over it. Then here, what we are doing is we are iterating infinitely, indefinitely over the content that is received from server. If the length of content is lesser than 1, that means it's either 0 or -1, then break and then print data and close. So what we are doing is we're connecting to the server, sending the request and receiving the data. Okay. Whatever browser does for us, we are doing the same thing. Let's see if we have that already. Okay, so here is the simple program, an HTTP request in Python. So it says that A byte-like object is required, not string. Where okay, all right. Question from BKS is that can you, all right, can you just zoom it a bit? Mm, BKS, could you set your resolution in the YouTube to something higher? You generally click on settings, click on quality, and select 720p. That should be good. Okay. Any other questions so far? Okay, so all right. So we just have to convert it into binary by putting B here. And I'm just hoping that this is correct only. This did work. Yeah. Let me just see if this exists in the browser. It is existing in the browser. No. Just to. Okay. For whatever reason this is, generally this works. Okay. Let me just try again. All right. I'll just check it later. Okay. So basically, the first way of connecting to a server is by using this library called socket. Socket library is a very low level in which you basically connect and specify what kind of stream do you want, how to connect to it. Yes, and then we specify this. Okay, we specify the host name and the port name, and then we get the URL here, and then we iterate over the data. Now, what you see here is quite low level, as in we are specifying how many bytes to receive in a single go and so on, right? And we are iterating over the data. Instead, there are high level libraries. And this method will be using it rarely. We'll be using the higher level library mostly. Okay, I'll take a look at this one later, that exactly what we did wrong here. Okay. And in the meantime, let's take a look at a little higher level library called URL lib. URL lib lets us import it lets us import the data. It lets us import the modules. And okay, this is how we did, no worries. Full screen and go back to Jupyter. Okay, so what you see is a library here that called URL. So what we are going to do is we are going to import everything from within URL, and then we are going to open the URL using this, and then print line by line. It's pretty simple. So Binta, you could just put B here and it should work. It should not give that error. Okay. All right, let me see if I could solve it. Okay, I think it'll take some time for me to fix this one because this one was written for Python 2. All right, now coming back to it. So we have got, right. Let's move on. We'll discuss that maybe later. All right, now let's, okay, let's take a look at this one. Here we are saying you import star from URL lib. So we got an object like request, and from request you're saying that URL open this one, right? And what you see is we get the handle just like we got in case of file. We got a handle over which either we could iterate or we could also read the entire data. Okay, we could also read the entire data in a single shot called dot read. Okay, so here what we see is that we are able to retrieve the data happily. Okay, this is what we have received from the server. Okay, a question is, what does it mean by asterisk? It means that import all the classes from this module called URL lib. This request object is a part of URL lib. If we did not do this, what we had to do was we would have to do import URL lib. Okay, and here we'll have to use URL lib dot request. Okay, so to avoid that, it is easier to import everything and then use those classes. Okay, so yes, so is everybody able to retrieve this data from the server? Are you getting the error in this line? So whatever data we got in this case, we also got here. Okay, if we just go to the browser, open this in the browser, then also we got this one. So this is a very easy way to read, to print the data line by line or to read the data line by line. Okay, it is just like a file. It is just like a file. Okay, Subrahma, you can skip that socket part. We will talk about socket later. Okay, let's continue from the URL lib, because URL lib is the more practical and the correct one, and we will do the rest later. A question is, suppose if I import two set of libraries that have common class name. Correct. So there are chances that the last one will override the first one. Good question. If we imported two modules, the classes from two modules, then the last one will give error. Yes. So URL lib is a different package. Socket is very low level and is hardly used in practical applications. It is mostly the higher level library such as URL lib that that we access. Yes, Subramanian, there is a concept of package. We will talk about package today. All right. Great. Now going ahead. So here it's opening the basically like opening the file handle. You remember that we iterated over the handle and counted the words. In the same way, we could do the word count from the URL using the same method. Using the same method. Okay. Using the same method. All right. I'll talk about the packages in a while. Okay. Let's continue here from here. Okay, so you can see that just like the way we did the word count when when we read from the file, in the same way we did it from the URLs. In the same way, we can also read a website in a very simple manner. Ignore the B part here. B part stands for binary data in the string. Okay. Now, further, the problem is that here the data is formatted in HTML format, right? And to understand that data, we would either need to write our logic, which will find out that H1 means H1 starts here, ends here, and therefore this is heading, and so on. Instead of that, we use another library called Beautiful Soup. Okay, to install something from within Jupyter, you could say exclamation pip install, and here we are trying to install Beautiful Soup, which is already installed in case of CloudX Lab. Okay, Kamal's question is he's getting an error to execute the code. Can you paste the error here? Okay, so what is the it says that request.url open and the request is not defined. Okay, why? Because while importing it, probably this is not imported. Okay, this is not imported. From URL lib import asterisk. Okay, you have done it. Okay, so looks strange. Which version of Python are you using? Use Python 3, please. Okay, so just pressing enter here, right? Here, right? URL lib import asterisk. Mm-hmm. All right. So maybe we can take it offline. Probably this should work. This should work. If you're using Python 3, had it been like Python 2 or something, then this request object is not there. Then you say import URL and we say URL lib dot URL lib. Okay. Can you just try this on your program? Print space hi. Is it working? Does it give error? Okay, so we are able to download or extract data from the website using the URL lib. Okay, okay, so if it is printing, if print hi is not giving an error, then then um, then that means it's Python 2. Okay, and okay, all right. So URL lib is a package, and package wouldn't have the name of the request object. Okay, probably there is the installation issues. So okay, so how would I debug it? Yes, yes, you can of course execute twice. There's no problem at all. Okay, so that means if print hi is giving an error, that means it's Python 3 definitely. Okay, and can you try this? Okay, can you change this a bit and say here you say import URL lib. Okay, import URL lib and say URL lib dot request. Okay, then also it should just give the results. All right. Okay, I have updated that. So you could try this also. It should also work fine. Okay, so now next let's move on. If we want to kind of format it really well and handle HTML, we could use a third-party package called Beautiful Soup. And how do you do that? We basically import, first of all, import the URL lib. So, so what Beautiful Soup does is it takes HTML, understands it, and then parses it and creates objects out of it. So basically, given an HTML, Beautiful Soup makes it possible for you to handle the HTML. Okay. So first of all, we import the URL lib. Then from the Beautiful Soup 4, we import the Beautiful Soup. And then we ask for the user to enter the URL. And then we are reading all of the data. Okay. Instead of just going line by line, we are using the read method, just like file handle. Okay, and once we got the entire HTML, we are giving it to Beautiful Soup and letting Beautiful Soup parse it. Okay, And then we are saying tags equals soup A. Okay, so it will show us the the all the links in the page. Okay, so let me comment out these portions first of all and take a look at what is HTML looks like. Okay, till here everybody is okay. So let's say I'm putting the URL for this Wikipedia link. Okay, so you can see that it has given us the full HTML for this link. This URL is what we have downloaded here. Okay, this URL is what we have downloaded in here. Okay, now the next thing we do is we parse this data because it's a complex HTML. It's better to be parsed by somebody. Okay, so we are giving it this. Okay, what does it say? No parser was explicitly, so I'm using best available parser. The code caused a warning. That's okay. Now let me just see what it means by soup. You can see that the entire HTML is there, but it is parsed. It is something processed, and then we could use the rest remaining of the tags here. Okay, so here we go. So we are saying find all the tags, starting tags whose name is A. Okay, and then we are printing it. From that website, these are the links that are extracted. Okay, from this Wikipedia page, there are these many links that are pointing to somewhere. From this Wikipedia page, these are the links that are pointing to somewhere. Okay, you see that? All right. A question from Vinta is that what is pip in Python? Pip lets you download and install a package. The packages in Python are generally located on central repositories, and using pip, you can download those packages from the central repository and install in your workspace. Okay, great, great. Now moving ahead, all right. So there's a installation problem of Beautiful Soup with Subrama. I think again we can take that offline. Probably you need to install a different version of Beautiful Soup. That's all. Okay. It's a soup, not soap. Okay. SOUP. Great, great. So what we just did was we downloaded a website, Wikipedia website, and converted extracted the links out of it, right? So that's the most simple form of HTML crawling. Okay, and we will use it often. We will use it often to download data from various websites. Okay, we'll use it often in order to download data from various websites while we proceed with while we work on machine learning data sets. All right, it is correct version only, Noor. This correct version only. So in the Jupyter file, you have the correct version only. Okay, so that's pretty much what we have done. We have downloaded data from the website, and this is what we did. Okay, this is also called web scraping. So why do we web scrape? We generally pull the data, particularly the social data of who links to who, get your own data back out of some system that has no export capability, and monitor a site for new information. Or we could spider the web to make the database for our search engine. Okay, the web scraping is quite important phenomena, and a lot of users use it for various kinds of works. The biggest scraper is probably the Google. What Google does is it goes to all the websites, keep downloading their data, and keep preparing their index. And it basically ranks the pages based on who is linking to who. Okay, so there is some controversy about web page scraping, and some sites are a bit snippy about it. And Facebook scraping, Google is blocking Facebook, and Facebook is blocking Google from scraping their data, and republishing copyright information is not allowed, and violating terms of service is also not allowed. Okay, so before scraping the data using Python, always go through the terms of service. Okay, and the easiest way to parse the HTML was Beautiful Soup. Beautiful Soup is pretty simple. This is what we did, and we basically let Beautiful Soup understand, correct the errors of HTML, and create a nice object layer for you, which you can quickly access. You don't have to deal with angle brackets anymore. Okay, the summary is TCP/IP gives us pipe sockets between applications. We designed application protocols to make use of these pipes. HTTP is a simple yet powerful protocol, and Python has good support for sockets. So that was a brief about HTTP. Web crawling is same as scraping. In web crawling, what we do is we scrape the website, we find out other links that this website is pointing to, and then we download all other website and then do the same over and over. That is called web crawling. Web crawling is basically downloading one website, find out all the links on that page, and then download those websites also, and keep on doing it over and over. Okay, that is called web crawling. So we are going from one website to another. Okay, then we'll talk about Python objects probably tomorrow. It's just 10 minutes it will take. We will then focus on remaining parts. Okay, so Python objects and modules, these are the two things we will discuss tomorrow in first 10 minutes. Then we will focus more on NumPy and pandas. Okay, we'll focus more on NumPy and pandas, and that would be good enough. So tomorrow, four things: Python objects, pandas, and pandas, and modules. Okay. While modules and objects will take around 10 to 12 minutes, while remaining part will be taken by NumPy and pandas, and a bit of linear algebra. So see you tomorrow, and have a great day ahead.